since January, for every man who entered the workforce, 4 women left it. Wow. This year alone, here are the numbers, 44,000 men got jobs, while 212,000 women stopped working or looking for work. The percentage of working mothers with young children has dropped every single month since January in more than 3/4 of the country. The average price of childcare for an infant is now higher than in-state college tuition. As they say, the math just ain't mathin'. And by the way, the United States is the only country with an advanced economy where the share of women in the workforce is declining, not growing.
A recent analysis of the country's labor market shows there are fewer mothers with young children actually working. The share of working mothers between the ages of 25 and 44 has dropped 3 percentage points so far this year.
Now to a concerning trend in the labor force. The exodus of women in the workplace is rising at an alarming rate. Take a look at data from the most recent jobs report. It shows 212,000 women aged 20 and over have left the workforce since the start of this year, while men of the same age have added 44,000 workers.
New data shows a growing number of mothers are leaving the workforce. According to the University of Kansas, from January to June of this year, the participation rate of women in the workforce with a child under 5 fell nearly 3%. Now, Time magazine reports that's due in part to companies pushing for people to come back to the office. You say it's not a coincidence that mothers' participation in the workforce is falling as flexibility disappears. So why do you think we're seeing this impact?
I do think, as you noted, that one factor here is return to office policies, both in the private sector and in the federal government. We are seeing employers demand that people in white-collar jobs who started working remotely during the pandemic return to the office 3 or 4 or even 5 days a week. And this can certainly make it harder to manage childcare, especially in the summer when camp schedules are even more out of line with parents' work schedules than during the school year. And really, we see over and over again that it is women who take up the slack, women who manage the childcare responsibilities. And when that flexibility disappears, they can find that they need to choose between work and family instead of having the option to do both. Another factor I want to mention.
So before she goes on, I do want to talk about this because I have a family friend. Yeah, a family friend who had a child not too long ago, and they were working with the federal government, and they were part of the whole layoffs that occur with the federal government. And when they were with the federal government, they had much more flexibility. They worked 100% from home, and they were able to manage daycare for their child better. Now, there's 2 types of flexibility we're talking here. There is a flexibility where some people, they had their kids in the house with them while they were working, which dealing with young kids, because I have a nephew, I find it hard to see how you can get work done with a little kid running around, I'll be honest, but I guess I don't want to go there because some people may be able to make it work. But in this particular case with a family member of my friend who I'm talking about, this person didn't use it for that reason. It was just they were able to get their child from daycare and back much easier because the daycare was close to their home when they work from home. So that's the key there. Whereas now, if they were called back into the office, because now I think they've changed jobs, obviously, they got laid off. Now they're in a private company and they're in the office, I think 1 or 2 days a week. That flexibility is now tougher because now it's difficult for them to go pick their kid up and drop them off to daycare. So they're spot on with that. And the problem about it mostly affecting women, I know right now we live in a time where, and thankfully so, things are more equal, and that's how they should be. But with that being said, even though things are more equal now, it does seem that it's women who are still taking on the brunt of childcare, which is why they're the most affected with having to leave the workforce because of the lack of flexibility now.
Briefly, though, is childcare and the unaffordability and inaccessibility of it for the many other moms who actually have never had the option of remote work. Childcare is incredibly expensive, and if you have to report to your retail or food service job in person, when you can't afford childcare, again, you're finding yourself with the need to choose between work and family rather than having the opportunity to do both.
Now, major companies like Amazon and many others say people need to be in the office to create a stronger company culture, to foster collaboration. Is it unreasonable for them to want that and to not want people trying to watch their kids during work hours?
Okay, again, before she goes on that point, I will say that what she just said is spot on too. Obviously, we all know things are getting more expensive. Childcare is definitely one of them. Again, this is a different family friend that I know who actually, they chose, if I'm not mistaken, no, let me not make that up because I don't know if that's true or not, but I do know of some people who have made the decision to stop working. And again, it was the woman in this case, because the cost of daycare that they would be paying was more than what they brought in from their job. That's crazy. So they were like, why am I gonna go work this job when I'm going into debt essentially to use the money I'm working for to pay for childcare when I can just watch my own kid? So, I mean, it makes perfect sense.
I don't think we're even talking about having people watching their kids during work hours. It's having people have the opportunity to not deal with a 1 hour commute when they get a call from the school that their kid is sick, or to be able to go get to their home office in 5 minutes rather than, again, going back and forth between the office and the school or the childcare program or the summer camp.
But if you're talking about childcare, you would still need childcare in those scenarios, right? Even if you're working from home, if you're saying you're not watching your kids at the same time, then someone still has to watch them, right?
Yes, but having options. What we really want to talk about here is giving women and anyone who's caring for children, who's caring for other family members, options and flexibility. And those are steadily being taken away from women in this economy at the same time that they're facing higher prices and uncertainty around tariffs and uncertainty around what the job market is even going to look like in 1 or 2 or 3 months. So,
okay, so it sounds to me, you can let me know what you think, guys. This is just me reading her body language. Her voice started to crack a little bit. I don't think she fully answered the question that was asked, and she kind of said it's just about flexibility, which is very broad. And she did touch on a point that I just talked about too, which I do definitely agree with, about, that commute being a big killer in flexibility, being able to go 5 minutes to pick your kid up if they're sick, like she said, or not having to commute back and forth and being able to, I guess it still comes down to the pickup and drop off, which is what the anchor was asking her. Okay, it helps with pickup and drop off, sure, but they're still in daycare. Are they not being watched at home and their company's not able to say, we don't want you to watch your kid on the clock when we're paying you to do work? It's a valid question. So it's just one of those tough situations, unfortunately.
Now to a concerning trend in the labor force. The exodus of women in the workplace is rising at an alarming rate. Take a look at data from the most recent jobs report. It shows 212,000 women aged 20 and over have left the workforce since the start of this year, while men of the same age have added 44,000 workers.
So we saw during the pandemic a lot of women actually entering the workforce. And now we're seeing a lot of strict return to office policies. And a lot of families are deciding they just can't pull that off. The other thing that's going on is daycare is getting really difficult because of the end of some pandemic subsidies. And so a lot of families are looking around and saying, I can't afford this. And one of the parents is going to have to drop out, and it's often the woman.
I have always heard, my friends with children complain and gasp at the cost of childcare. Can you just help me understand how much that does cost? Because there are some long-term impacts to women with young children leaving the workforce.
Right. So in a lot of states, I think it's about 33 states, it's actually more than college tuition. It really ranges. I think Washington, D.C., it's about $18,000 a year for 2 children. As I said, there used to be pandemic subsidies, and those would have actually continued under the Build Back Better Act, but that did not pass. And so it's getting really expensive. And at the same time, you have childcare workers on, Medicaid or food stamps. So it's getting really expensive for families, and there's just not really a solution on the horizon.
Okay, so they're essentially saying the same thing that the other video was talking about. It's the fact that there's more return to office mandates going on and that childcare is getting a lot more expensive. But what we did learn here is that a lot of these subsidies that were in place, which I didn't know were a thing, have gone away. I have no kids, so it makes sense. But they've gone away, and they didn't get passed through the new bill, which to me is ridiculous. I mean, this is something that's very important. I don't know why I wouldn't put more emphasis on passing a bill that would help working families and help working mothers. To me, it's kind of ridiculous. This whole thing is just a mess.